So first, I thank you for your kind words in the introduction, and it has been an amazing 20 years. I see several of the DIF chiefs over there who suffered the same wrath that Carl did, John Hannon, Dr. Charles Bass, Ali Miska sitting out here somewhere. And yes, I am a resource manager at heart, but today I'm here to talk to you about closing out this amazing 2022 Chem Biodefense S&T Conference. As I reflect on the amount of work that went into planning and executing this conference, I thank each and every one of you, as Carl did, that worked behind the scenes, and for that round of applause. Next, I'll say before I end my conversation, I want to wish you safe travels as you leave to return your homes, so that my closing remarks will end with a call to action. So this is why I'm wishing you up front well wishes for safe travels. So now stepping back into the moment where we are here, the Chem Biodefense program. As I walked around yesterday, I got a lot of feedback and questions related to what is this Chem Biodefense and this S&T and the JSTO, and I thought I would spend a few minutes today to talk about the Chem Biodefense program and how this conference and what you do fits into the bigger DoD hierarchy. And as the resource sponsor for Chem Biodefense, the big circle there in the middle, to highlight the multiple organizations, to showcase how it works. And that was one of the greatest questions that we have, because it takes this community as well as the advanced material developers, and I don't see Mr. Colvin with all the bright lights in my eyes, so forgive me there, and other members of the community here. So if you look, that star there guides you to the JSTO, Joint Science Office, who's putting on this conference. Mr. Colvin and the advanced developers. There's also S&T that we take in from DARPA. And then there's also test and evaluation, because we all know that research and development without test and evaluation would not render the products that we need. Above that, and actually the start of our process, is within the Joint Requirement Office, and they're the body that takes in the gaps in the capabilities and the risk assessments, and they listen to the warfighter, and it's a collective, as well as you are a collective to solving our problem. And I want to then look, if you look in the upper corner where you see the triad of the defense Pentagon, you heard from DASD Watson, you heard from Honorable Rosenblum, then there's USD A&S, and beyond the USD A&S, there is the Secretary of Defense and the DepSec that completes our hierarchy, and then we compete within the overall executive branch and the White House, you heard from them, as well as the congressional people. I will end with a slide that will give you our resourcing profile over the next 5 years. And the significance today, before I continue in this speech, is understanding this military-industrial complex, because you need resources to do what you do. I need to understand what you do, and the S&T managers and the program managers need to understand what it is you do, so that we can tell our story, compete for resources within the department, and also compete against the other priorities that exist in the federal government, such as pandemic preparedness. So with that said, I was in awe. This was the first time that I've attended an S&T conference where we had senior leaders from the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy and the National Security Council, as well as an honorable from OSD Brief. It was impressive to learn about the policy implications, as well as to see how this S&T conference has evolved over the years in helping us try to tackle our problems. So let's step back for a minute. Honorable Rosenblum opened the conference with highlights of the National Defense Strategy, and she also went on to reference some implications of the National Biodefense Strategy. So chem is not forgotten, but the threat now requires us to address biodefense more significantly. And so it is a key driver in the department's pivot, and it's a key driver that influenced the $1.2 billion that we added in the program in FY 23 to 27 resourcing cycle. So I would say it was significant to hear from Dr. Hillary Carter, who talked about the National Council and the shifting priorities. So you had the adding of ASD Rosenblum and Dr. Carter's perspective to address the future biodefense threat. And you also heard from Matt Hepburn, pandemic preparedness and the need for S&T investments, but also the need to change how we go about resourcing those S&T investments. You also heard from Colonel Crockett from the U.S. Army Chem School. He addressed the preservation of combat power, which requires us to redefine the problems we face in chem-bio contested environments, and then challenged us to apply risk-based analysis to support investments decisions. So remembering, we fight and compete among other programs and equally important, but how we tell our story determines whether or not we get money to support the to support the S&T research that you are doing. So most informative to me was the operators from the various services who sat on that panel the first day. They provided perspectives that were invaluable. They asked the S&T community to build resilience through innovation, the theme of this conference, into equipping how we provide and empower them to fight and win in a contested environment. So I'll pause here and say to the warfighters, we hear you. We hear you and we have heard you, and we will work on delivering resourcing decisions that deliver capability sets and work with your service components to provide more training on the equipment you will use in response to a chem-bio event. Imagine, that was just day one. As the week progressed, you had the opportunity to exchange ideas with some of the most brilliant minds in the nation sitting here among you, and building the network to tackle the complex problems in the chem-bio space is what the organizers of this conference hope to provide you. So I hope you took advantage of that. And speaking of space, I am sure Major Rubin's astronaut International Space Station wowed you, because it sure wowed me. And the possibility of synthetic biology and biotechnology. I hope you had the opportunity to speak with her. It was impressive to have someone with her experience here. It was more important and impressive in my mind from a resourcing space to think about the possibilities and the things that she did without resources. So it stretches your ingenuity and imagination on what to do. Another impressive note for this conference was the amount of diversity. When I look out at the audience, equally impressive, as you heard from Dr. Bassetti on behalf of DTRA's director, Ms. Hirschman, as a good example of diversity and inclusion and how across our workforce and this chem-bio landscape, we can leverage that diversity to get new perspectives on how to solve our problem. A shout out to Dr. Bassetti, because I'm also a girl from Brooklyn, from the Caribbean, and grew up in Brooklyn, so shout out there. You also heard from Dr. Katz, and she's from Georgetown Center for Global Health Sciences and Security, and several others who participated here this week. You participated in several plenary sessions, which one included how to do business with the Joint Science Technology Office through DTRA, and if you need, Carl Brown and his team will provide more information on working with us and this program. And in that, we had the challenges you learned about S&T work that's ongoing, and you also probably picked up some of the challenges that we're facing in the Chem Bio Defense program, in which the threat is so complex that it requires us to define the problem space a little differently, and then to be able to, again, communicate that resourcing story so that we can get the funds that we need to deliver the capabilities to the warfighter. With that, I hope you took some time to walk through the exhibits and the poster boards, and it highlighted to me the value of collaboration across the national labs, academia, industry, and our international partners. Those exhibits and posters remind us of what is possible when smart minds like yours converge on a problem. Now, I will call your attention back to Dasty Watson's opening remarks. He gave 6 attributes of S&T that we need to pursue that ties in with the National Defense Strategy, which calls for adaptability, flexibility, and speed to increase our joint warfighter resilience. If I called on you, could you name 3 of them? Not to worry, I'll save you. The first one was scale, access, and manufacturing. Within the S&T space, we talk about budget activities 1, 2, and 3, from fundamentals to applied research to advanced technology. And it's key to understand that because that's a pipeline that goes into advanced development to deliver that capability. He also talked about per unit costs. That's an affordability factor. And that factor deals with bringing down the cost to make it manageable so that the service who has to maintain this will sustain it. And that's the third one was shelf life and sustainability. Obviously, with a changing threat, you can't buy too much of something because it becomes obsolete rather quickly. And that brings us to the 4th factor, which is no single solution set. So whatever we configure in S&T in that resilience space must be flexible, reconfigurable, and integrated capabilities in order to help us with the 5th one, which is interoperability with our partners and NATO allies. And then finally, the 6th one was logistics, reducing the burden. That burden is physiological as well as physical in terms of space footprints and the various things. So now I will bring you to the next slide. And this is the one that matters from a resourcing perspective. And this slide, I will say, provides you a profile of the ChemBio Defense funding stream over the next 5 years. And you'll see that there is $3.4 billion in the understand space that we talked about in our portfolio, 2.3 in protect, and that's that PPE, the collective protection, the vaccines and pretreatments, as well as 1.7 in the mitigate, which is decon and therapeutics. Enabling, which is the area where the bio basic research falls, is 1.2 billion, and that brings up the rare and, gives you a basic look as to where our money is, where our current investments are based on the strategy. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank Colonel Hoffman, Chris Hoffman, retired, who is sitting somewhere here in the audience. The light is blinding me, so I can't tell you where he is. But what it is basically, as we laid out this slide, it talks to you, or it's to help you orient to where we require innovation to deliver capability sets that reduce risk now and in the future. It also should highlight the fact that the S&T inserts into our acquisition programs are necessary for us to remain relevant and to provide the capabilities and technologies that outpace our adversary. So as I bring my speech to a close, I want to say you've heard from leaders. They've asked you to go big. They've asked you to go bold. They've asked you to disrupt by introducing new S&T capabilities that give our warfighters the competitive edge. And if these lights weren't blinding, I could probably see your responses. But the question that I have for you, or the statement, Colonel Grice, I would say, he spoke to, you are capable of better. And I am confident that you are capable of better. The question that I leave you with is, do you accept the challenge? Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your conference.